Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable advisors from across the country. And joining me on this segment is Gregg Keele. Gregg, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be with you.
Gregg, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically, who are the types of folks that you help?
At Smarter Divorce Solutions, we help folks unwind bad marriages without destroying their families, themselves, their relationships with their children, and other important people in their lives. It's a really, really tough time. And people oftentimes are angry and they want to do things like fight or poke the other person as hard as they can. And our job is to help manage those emotions, the reality of the new situation, and find a way where both parties can go away as happy as possible and with a little bit of mutual respect intact so that all those relationships can be preserved as well as possible.
So I'd imagine in this time in people's lives, it's likely the first and hopefully the only time they'll ever have this challenge and need help, so they probably have no idea where to even start. What are the biggest concerns on their minds or the biggest questions that they have when they reach out to you?
Well, one of the difficulties of going through this process is there's no shortage of folks in our lives that want to give us divorce advice, and most of that advice is pretty bad. So that's the one place I'd ask people to start is find a qualified and trusted certified divorce financial analyst to help analyze your financial situation and ease some of the worry that goes along with that. We work with a lot of high net worth families where one spouse or the other hasn't worked in a long time or gave up his or her career for other endeavors, raising children, working with charities. And so breaking that up, depending on the state you live in, can be very, very stressful. So it really starts with sitting down, understanding what the marital assets are and what expectations need to be reset to in order to exit the marriage. And it's a tough time because usually there's some trauma. Someone has wanted to or has cheated on the other. Someone has lied. Someone has done something offensive to the other, or maybe both. But we usually find that no good marriage ends in divorce. So usually these are symptoms of a relationship that probably should have ended a long time ago anyway. And it gives everybody an opportunity to move on to a better situation and a happier life. It's just getting from that point of a lot of fear and anger to that point of acceptance and really optimism about living a happier life.
So you mentioned one example of one of the partners perhaps hasn't worked for in a long time. So people are going to have all kinds of different situations. Can you give us like a high level, maybe 10,000 foot view of what you look for and what are the pillars that you help guide them through in your process?
Absolutely. Um, we work with folks in cooperative, collaborative, litigated, difficult and messy, everything from the very cooperative and loving to the very worst of the infighting. And what we want to look for in a situation where one person is financially disadvantaged is how do we reorder that person's life in the short term, in the midterm, and in the long term. So perhaps he's going to need some extra liquidity from the marital estate for the first 3 or 4 years just to get back on his feet, maybe to start to work again. Or if working isn't necessary, just to reorient living and shopping habits to the reality of, we're splitting a marital estate in half. So you're going to live off half, right? And that's going to require that we reorient expectations and values about what's important. So really understanding the assets and who benefits most from each asset based on their tax rate, uh, based on the liquidity of the asset. No, some things might not pay off for a few years. Well, the person who needs money right now probably doesn't want that asset. A person with a lot of income may benefit more from low tax basis assets. Someone with low income may be able to take tax deferred assets and kind of even out the estate that way. And this is where we really can provide a big advantage to our clients. Many times, attorneys are expertly trained in the law and have very little or no formal training in finance. And so when you get into some of these assets, even something as simple as a 401k, um, a lot of folks not trained in finance wouldn't know that the employer stock inside the 401k may qualify for special tax treatment, or what the special laws of a 401k are around divorce and how they differ from an IRA. There's three kinds of 457 plans. They're all named a 457B plan, but they all have different implications in divorce. Uh, I was talking to an attorney the other day who was looking at some non-qualified stock options, and because the option price, the market price was below the option price, she said, well, they're worthless, right? Well, they had 7 or 8 years to expiration. So under Black-Scholes modeling, they were absolutely not worthless. But that attorney would have made that mistake and counted those assets as zero, had she not reached out. So um, these are the things we look at. How do we get more out of each settlement than meets the naked eye?
Terrific insights. That's fascinating. In your example, you shared where maybe one of the partners was less financially advantaged than the other. And let me know if this is a silly question, but if they're both like pretty okay financially, like equally contributing to the household, does it make it easier? What happens then?
Well, in some ways, it does make it easier because there's less fear on each side that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be poor, or oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm not going to be able to live the life we're used to, or if the children are still minors, I'm not going to be able to take care of the kids or stay in the school district. So when both parties are relatively healthy in their earnings, they can take care of themselves, if you wish. Um, it does make the process of splitting the assets less stressful. I don't know if it's easier, but it's certainly less stress on that side of the ledger, which allows us to sometimes have more productive conversations faster.
Greg, what inspired you to get into this line of work and help people in this time of need? How did you get started?
I, I unfortunately went through a divorce 7 or 8 years ago. Uh, that was not my choice, and it was a really painful exercise. In fact, I did a combat tour in Iraq with the Army a few years before that, and I will do that several more times before I'll do one more divorce. Right?
Wow.
It was a tough time, but uh, my ex-wife is a lovely person, and as much as we wanted to fight and hate each other and destroy everything, um, we were able to find, each of us, something deep inside that was able to resist that insatiable desire to fight and hate and hurt. And we were able to eat some poop sandwiches and let things go. And what the result has been is that to this day, she and I are friendly and friends. We co-parent really well. We decided to live a mile apart so that it wouldn't affect our children, and we've been able to focus consistently on not how does it affect me or how does it affect you, but rather this one childhood that our children get, this one chance at childhood. We're not going to screw that up any more than we have to, and staying focused on coming out of this a better person, on making this experience not bad for the children, but ultimately better, because we were in a bad marriage, right? And we've both become much happier, and our children are happy and successful. And I think they'll tell us when they're 30, which is a ways away. I think when they're adults, they're going to tell us, we just didn't have any stress from that. So being able to bring that perspective to the work I do, being able to help other families hopefully get to this place where all of their lives are better because they were able to, with personal courage and grace, end a bad relationship. That's just great work to put in the universe. So that's why I do this. It's just good work.
That's wonderful because I'd imagine it gives you, it really helps you empathize with those folks. Greg, before I ask you my last question, this recent pandemic, has this changed any of the advice that you give, or has it even changed the perspective of people out there that are wanting to be divorced? What have you heard?
It has changed perspectives considerably. In fact, during the pandemic, we saw divorces drop dramatically. And there were a lot of theories that out of the pandemic, we would have a baby boom and a divorce boom. Well, interestingly enough, the birth rate dropped also dramatically as people were unwilling to expose themselves or their babies to the risk of pregnancy during that time, which is very rational. But also, same thing on the divorce side. Uh, People didn't want to be going through a divorce and either have to live together or go live isolated somewhere else, right? For an unforeseeable amount of time. And now we're starting to see that open up again. And perspectives have changed. The folks were kind of getting a bit of a flood of new divorces as restrictions ease from uh, government and other places. And the perspective really has been a greater focus on life is short, and living another day or another week or another month in a state of misery isn't acceptable. And so we gotta live each moment of this precious life, giving our greatest gifts and with much love and happiness as we can. And if I'm in a bad relationship that's not working, I need to fix it or end it. And I think that attitude is really coming out, along with, we've all noticed probably in ourselves and the people around us, we all need to take a lot of care to recognize the emotional impact the last 2 years have had on each of us. And I know we've felt it and we've let it slide through, but I would encourage all of your viewers and listeners just to take a little time, whether alone or with their religious leader or with their therapist or whomever, and just feel through uh, some of the impact of the last 2 years and find some healing from that.
Wonderful insight. And, it really is counterintuitive to what people thought the result would be from this pandemic with relationships. Greg, for folks listening that would love to speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
You can go to greggkeele.com or smarterdivorcesolutions.com. Uh, our phone number is 317-288-5400 if anyone still uses the phone. But again, Gregg Keele with two G's, GreggKeele.com or smarterdivorcesolutions.com. Plenty of ways to connect with us there, find out a little bit more about what we do, and set up a time for a quick call to see if what we do aligns with what they need.
You've been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing these great insights with my audience today, Greg. And I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Mark, it's a privilege talking to you every time. Thank you so much for having me today.
That was Gregg Keele from greggkeele.com and smarterdivorcesolutions.com. This segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for tuning in.